Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more MBTI. Today we're going to be looking into the mind of a national treasure and an actual hero, because a hero is he who does the courageous and intelligent thing. We'll be looking at Daryl Davis from his interview with Faith Matters, but before we do, let's dig into the system so that we can talk about what it actually is. You've never seen MBTI done the way that I do it. I use this type grid. We have 5 choices, 5 questions, and they help us to determine the manner in which we think. We are looking for examples in other people, for things that we identify within ourselves so that we can help ourselves to improve ourselves in the way that we want to. The 5 things that we are looking for are things and ideas, right? You are either dealing with the actual things and experiences that have happened from now into the past, or you are looking forward and anticipating the ideas and the concepts from here into the future. You either are gathering new ones of those, or you are sorting through and finding the best one of those. You either do that for yourself or for the tribe. If you do it for yourself, that doesn't mean you're selfish. That means that you take the action for yourself first, and then you pass it to the tribe. Whereas if you are tribe-oriented, you give it to the tribe first, and then you take your enjoyment after that. You are either rigid or flexible in the manner in which you do this. You are either my way or the highway, or let's see if we can flex around some other people's ideas and get this done in a way that is good for everyone. And you are either direct or informative. You either tell the story one time, or you tell the story 2 or 3 times. You repeat information. You chase off down rabbit holes. You don't know when to stop. All of these things play together and to help us find things about ourselves that we might want to change. And it's not to say that this is a medical diagnosis or that I am talking about any type of disorder. This is just helping us identify patterns of thought and behavior. Daryl Davis, to me, is a national hero. He has done the courageous thing and done it intelligently. And he has been responsible for a great deal of reconciliation in this country. And I admire him greatly for that. And this is a journey of discovery of how people's minds works and how they might focus. And I like to start with the people who I admire. So we're going to dig in and see what Daryl has to say. Now, this is not the run-of-the-mill interview. He's telling his story. I don't even know if we're going to get to a question from the podcast host past this point. I've let him get a good 10, 15 minutes in. Where are we at? I think it's 10 minutes. So that he's comfortable. He's well-versed in this story. He is telling it in one sitting. And so it'll be a little bit harder than normal to do this, but we should still be able to find all 5 of the indicators if he is dealing with things or ideas, new ones or old ones, self or tribe, rigid or flexible, direct and informative. All of those things should be available even in a TED Talk, even in a press briefing. You should be able to get the gist if it's their own words. And so let's dig in and see what David has to say. Or Daryl.
In high school, and I decided I was going to major in music. Now, how does that work? I did not play music in high school.
Really?
I was a late
No
bloomer.
piano, nothing by high school.
Wow.
What?
Well, what happened
I did not know that.
was this. I had friends. I was not in any of the bands. I had friends who were like in marching band, concert band, jazz band. And, I'd get them to show me little things, and I'd practice them. And some of them were in little rock and roll bands outside of school.
Yeah.
Show me stuff. So I'd practice it. And I went out because, you have to audition to major in music, when you go to college. And I went out and bought books, taught myself how to read music. And so I auditioned for 3 schools, and surprisingly, I passed all 3 auditions. But I had bad habits. It's like, when you self-teach yourself how to type, you do this kind of thing instead of this.
Yep.
So I was playing the piano with the wrong fingering, the wrong hand position, all that.
Wow.
And so they had to straighten me out,
Wow.
had to play scales and all that kind of thing.
Okay, so far, we're dealing with things that have happened. A great part of this interview is dealing specifically with his life and things that have happened, right? But he's digging into the details of the things that have happened in his life that aren't necessarily all that relevant, right? That's a little bit informative, a little bit things.
But I majored in music. Music became my profession.
Right, that whole thing that he just said could have been summed up right here. Now, I'm appreciative of the extra information, but if he was more direct, like extremely direct, that would have been the entirety of what he said there.
But studying race relations became my obsession.
We're getting a lot of I's and me's, but it's his story. So.
And I graduated in 1980, high school in 76, college in 1980, with my bachelor's in music and jazz performance, and I minored in voice. And
again, dealing with specifics, right? That's a couple of different things. Majored in music, minored in voice. Those are things, not ideas.
Shortly thereafter, country music had made a resurgence. And, if you wanted to work playing music full time, you played whatever was popular. Yeah. So I joined a country band. And I like country music. And, it's no different than the blues, same 3 chords. So
that's a very general box, right? The idea that all music is the same 3 chords is a very, very general box, right? That is a box, though. It's not a bunch of ideas. That's one idea.
I joined this country band. It was an all-white band. I was the only black guy in the band, and usually the only black guy where we would play. There was a place called the Silver Dollar Lounge in a town called Frederick, Maryland. Frederick, Maryland is about an hour and 20 minutes north of Washington, D.C.
That's very things oriented, right? You're laying out where this place is. You're laying out where the name of the town, the name of the place, where in the state it is. That's very things oriented. That's bringing the experience in.
Silver Dollar Lounge had a reputation of being an all-white lounge. There were no signs that said, no blacks, whites only, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. But you knew.
Again, the sensory supporting the idea that you knew, but there was no signs. There was like that. The negative sensory is still a focus on the sensory, right? The sensory are the things you can touch, you can see, you can do, the actual experience of things.
And when you go somewhere where you're not welcome and alcohol is being served, it's not always a good combination, right?
Wow.
So the band had played there before. They were pretty well established in the Maryland area. I'd never been in. I knew of it, but I'd never been in there.
And again, that's the sensory, right? Pretty well established in the Maryland area. That's 2 more things, right? This isn't a singular thing. We are getting a lot of evidentiary things. Right?
So they had a gig there. So here I am in the Silver Dollar Lounge, right? Yeah. No problems, and people looked at me, of course, when I came through the door, but no problems. We played our first set and took a break, and I'm following the band over to the band table to sit down when I feel somebody come up from behind and put their arm around my shoulder. And he says, "Man, I sure like your all's music." I said, "Thank you," and I shook his hand. And he pointed at the stage, and he says, "This is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis." I was not offended by it, but I was rather surprised that this guy, being at least a decade and a half older than me, that he did not know the black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's piano style.
How do you not know this sensory?
And I proceeded to explain to him.
Right, that's not the idea. This is the actual factual thing that had happened. Jerry Lee got this from this place, right?
That Jerry Lee got it from the same place I did.
That's bringing the evidence. That's some more SE, gathering evidence.
Did from black, blues, and boogie-woogie piano players. That's where rock and roll, rockabilly evolved. Oh, no. I ain't never seen no black man play like that except for you. He didn't believe me. Wow. But he was fascinated. I said, "Look, man," I said, "I know Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee is a good friend of mine. He's told me himself where his influences were." He didn't believe that either.
Wow.
But
wow.
Okay, so that's some self-focus, right? He's talking about Jerry Lee. Like, we're getting a lot of that, and it is his story. So it would naturally be inclined that way. But there are a couple of indicators that it is more self than tribe, right? He learned from his friends and he practiced by himself, but he wasn't part of the group. He wasn't doing it for the marching band. He did it for money, right? That he decided this was going to be my job, and He went and he did it for the money. It's not about being the part of the band. He chose the genre of music because it was popular and he would get paid. All of these things compound into self over tribe, right? He could have been, I loved this genre of music so much that I had to find a group to be in and that we could be great. That's not what it's about, right? It's about his sensory, his experience. That's not a bad thing.
But he was fascinated with me and wanted me to come back to his table and let him buy me a drink. Now, I don't drink alcohol, but I agreed to go back to his table. I ordered a cranberry juice. He paid the waitress. She brought it. He took his glass and he clinked my glass and cheered me. And then he says, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man.
Wow.
And now I'm totally baffled. That's why it was important to give you my early background.
Yeah.
Because, at that point, I had sat down with thousands of white people or anybody else and had a meal, a beverage, a conversation. Mm-hmm. How is it that this guy had never sat down before with a black person? And so, nothing was registering here.
That idea is completely out of the box. That is not acceptable new idea, right? He's not exploring the new ideas. He's got the idea. He's exploring the sensory. How is it possible that you haven't had this experience?
And so innocently, I asked him, I said, why? And he stared down at the tabletop and didn't answer me. I asked him again, I said, why? And his buddy sitting next to him said, tell him. Elbowed him. And now I'm totally mystified, what's going on here? I said, why? And I said, tell me. And he says, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. So I burst out laughing at him because now I didn't believe him.
Oh, wow.
Like I told you, I have just about every book written on the Klan. I know a lot about the Klan. And then
I've got all the sensory. I know everything.
Don't just come up and embrace a black guy and want to buy him a drink and hang out and praise their talent or whatever.
I'm having a hard time with the flexible versus rigidity, right? Because there's not a whole lot of examples there. He's holding his belief fairly firmly, but he's not necessarily my way or the highway with it, right? He is fairly flexible around the ideas.
So I figure, okay, he's making a joke. So I'm laughing. He goes inside his pocket, pulls out his wallet, handed me his Klan membership card.
Sensory.
I instantly recognized the Klan logo, which is a red circle with a white cross and a red blood drop in the center. And I stopped laughing because it wasn't funny anymore. It's for real. So I gave it back to him. And we talked about the Klan and some other things. But this guy was very, very friendly. And he gave me his phone number and wanted me to call him whenever I was to return to this bar with this band because he wanted to bring his friends, with the pointed hats.
Yeah.
Right?
What?
Klansmen and Klanswomen
Wow.
to see, as he put it, the black guy who plays like Jerry Lee. I'm not so sure he called me a black guy to his friends, but that's how he called me, in front of him. And so I said, okay. So I call him every 6 weeks because, we're on a rotation, the other bands. Call him on a Wednesday or Thursday and say, hey, man, we're going to be down at Silver Dog coming out. He'd come both Friday and Saturday. He'd bring Klansmen and Klanswomen, not in robes and hoods, but in regular street clothes. They'd come in, they'd gather around the stage, and they'd watch me play with the band. They'd get out and dance to our music. And on the breaks, I'd make my way over to his table, thank him for coming, say hello. Most of the Klan people would stay there. There were a couple of them. Every time I'd come over that way, they'd see me coming, they'd get up and they'd move to the other side of the room. So the implied message was, we don't want to shake your hand. We don't want to talk to you. We just want to look at you. Okay, fine.
That's fairly flexible, right? There's some people would press the issue. Some people would lean into that discomfort. Some people would be very much, it's my way or the highway. I was looking specifically for that, right? I'm fairly certain that he has gathered the things. I'm fairly certain that he is, he's fairly informative, right? A lot of this is because he is telling a story that he is very familiar with. But there are rabbit holes. There are over-explanations. There are extrapolations. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But it seems to be informative. So I was looking to see about the flexibility or rigidity. Now, I was assuming that it would be flexible, right? I'm going to be honest with that because how do you do what he did and not be at least a little bit flexible? But I was willing to accept T because I have been wrong before. It does seem like an F, right? So really, all we're really looking for now is the self-tribe, right? Most of what we've seen so far has been about, y'all didn't see this part because I like to get into it a little bit, but his whole goal in this was to figure out for himself the idea, right? And so that lends me towards self. But the way he's going about it can be construed tribe, but honestly, I am leaning more towards self. I'm going to look just for a couple more minutes to see if we can get a little bit more confirmation specifically on self-tribe. Everything else I'm fairly all right on. So let's go.
That's all I got.
Wow.
But sit down there, talk with those who are curious.
Like, there's not a lot of feedback about how this affected the band, because you can guarantee there was some pushback against the band. That's not part of the equation. There's no taking in the other in that manner, right? The interactions, he's flexible, but it's not focused outward as much as understanding inward.
And this went on for a while. And by the end of that year, I quit the band and I went back to playing rock and roll and whatever else was going on. So, I lost touch with the guy. I mean, I had no reason to, stay in contact with the clan. And several years later, it dawned on me, Daryl, you blew it. The answer to your question that's been plaguing you since the age of 10, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? It fell right into your lap, and you didn't even realize it. Who better to ask?
That is a tribe miss, right? That's a self-indicator with a tribe miss. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the actual typology part. We're going to talk about the type grid and what this all means. So he seems to be fairly well focused on the actual thing, bringing the actual evidence in. That's going to give us things straight off the top. So we're going to be in the left-hand two columns. I keep forgetting my camera's backwards. He seems to be getting the new experiences as opposed to getting the best experiences. And so that's going to lead us towards new on the far left-hand side of the screen here. He seems to be doing it for himself as opposed to getting it for the tribe, to give back the experiences to the tribe. It seems more about the understanding for himself. So that's going to give us the top two rows. He seems to be fairly flexible in the manner in which he does it. That's going to give us an F and not a T. So we're looking at an ISFP, and I am going to go ahead and swap this over so that we can talk about this last little part. The directed informative comes in on the third slot. The top two is you, the bottom two is how you give it back, right? And if you were giving back the information freely with no hesitation and no reservation and maybe a little bit extra, then you're informative. That means that you are extroverted in your third slot. If you were to hold back the information and give short clipped answers that explain things but stopped, then you would be direct, and that would be an internal focus, and you would be an I in the third slot. So we're looking at a straight up ISFP here. Let's dig in and see what that means. An ISFP is going to feel very much concerned with the morals of the situation, how I feel about it. They're going to be talking about past feelings a great deal. They're going to gather how they feel really easy. They're going to stand in their morals really easy. Their morals may be misaligned due to ignorance, but whatever it is, they're going to stand in it. They feel responsible for the current things in the exploration, to bring the sensations, right? Now, his responsibility is primarily to self and then to the tribe. So he does the things for himself, gets the things for himself, and possibly even overindulges for himself. Then that's what the SE is. That's what the SE does. And he feels responsible for making sure that he has all the good experiences, or all the experiences in general. They don't necessarily have to be good. The third eye, the thing that he is going to get defensive over and he's going to push back against, is the idea. Now, you can see this in the first 10 minutes where the idea was, how can you hate me without ever knowing me? He just said it again. And there was plenty of showing there of him pushing back, right? This doesn't make sense. He pushed back against his parents because it didn't make sense. That was his box. How dare you question my box? And the part that he's going to misrepresent and misunderstand, the throat, is going to be what other people think. He could not comprehend how they could possibly hate him without ever knowing him. That makes no sense. Your thoughts make no sense. What he really wants to do, what is really going to feed his heart and make him happy, is dealing with the ethics, correcting the feelings of everyone in the right way. Now, that's harder to do because the information comes up from the bottom. You get it in the wrong way. And so you have to be intentional about that. That is what just happened. He just realized that he could even correct the ethics. And now that he's done it, he's really done it. He committed to it, and it makes him feel good. He does that through the SI, and the SI is organization and bringing the experiences to a more personal level, to sorting down to the best experience, to giving the best experience. Now, SI is all about receiving, but he is a giver. Like the SE is giving. So instead of the broad experiences, he has to give the special experience. And that's what's going to feed that FE. The special experience for him is probably going to be this next part we see, but that is bringing his special brand of knowledge to the tribe to correct their ethics. It's going to, that's going to bring us down to the sacral, and the sacral is where you get it wrong, but you don't do it on purpose. You intentionally choose the wrong thing. Nobody ever says, hey, I'm going to choose the wrong thing, but people do it all the time. That's because of this slot. And for him, that's going to be the NE, all the ideas. He missed the idea that people could even be upset with skin color. It made no sense to him, right? He wasn't exposed to that idea. He wasn't looking for that idea. You have a tendency to not look for ideas. That is here. That is part of it. And that's got a lot to do with the base, because the base for him is going to be the TI. And the TI is your logic. It is how you yes, no check all of the things in your life. And so if you don't have the correct information, all of your logic is going to be wrong. If any of this sounds correct to you, makes you think, hey, that sounds like me, you should check out the ISFP video. It is part of the playlist for the Infinite Integration System, where you can take this and turn it into a stronger, better you. It is to change you in the manner that you want to change you. I'm not here to change you. I'm giving you the tools and the framework to change yourself. So you should definitely check out those videos. Now we're going to look for some confirmation. We're going to watch a few more minutes of this video just to make sure, just to get a good feel. Now, this is not no official diagnosis of anything. This is us speculating about the man and learning a little bit more about him as we go along. We're going to be looking specifically for the morals checks now, though. Whether he is dealing with the morals, whether he is bringing the current things and feeling responsible for other people having the experiences, whether he is defensive over the best idea, whether he misunderstands and misrepresents other people's thoughts. We're going to be looking for some logic choices that may not have been the best, and we're going to be looking at missing the ideas. The heart and the solar plexus are really hard to identify, but if we see them, we will, right? We will here. I can almost guarantee you that he is going to be correcting the ethics in this next part. And so this already looks to me like a really good fit. But we're going to check it out. We're going to get a few more minutes and just get some confirmation of these things. Let's go.
That question of,
Stop
then
doing
someone who would go so far as to join an organization with over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them or who don't believe as they believe. So get back in contact with that guy, ask him, get him to fix you up with the Klan leader from Maryland. Let me give you the hierarchy of how the Klan works. Mm-hmm. Today, there's no such thing as the Ku Klux.
Okay, so this is the education on the actual sensory experience. He's feeling responsible for letting you know how the organization works, right? That is the things bringing the new experience to these people.
Klan. There used to be the Ku Klux Klan, and then chapters of the Ku Klux Klan all around different states. But over time, it splintered up. So now today you have many Ku Klux Klan groups. They all are autonomous. They all use the same colors on their robes, the same titles, the same secret handshake, the same passwords, etc. And they all believe the same thing. However, if you see some of these groups together out in public, they will hold a united front. But behind closed doors, they hate each other. They're rivals with each other. But you know, when you hate others, you're basically hating yourself.
That is true.
Too. So as a national Klan leader, a national Klan group, you need a national leader. We call our national leader the president, who oversees all our 50 states. They call theirs the imperial wizard. Anybody that is prefixed with the word imperial means that person is a national officer. And then you get down to the next high level, which would be a state leader, which we would call the governor. They call their state leader the Grand Dragon. Anybody on the grand level means that person is state. Okay, so I wanted to meet the Grand Dragon of Maryland and interview him. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna, reach out to that guy, from years ago at the Silver Dollar. So it took me a while to track him down. He had moved, didn't have a phone, but he had an address. So I decided I'm gonna go to that address and knock on his door.
Wow. And the purpose of this meeting was still just to get that answer to your question?
Yeah, and for him to hook me up with his boss, the Grand Dragon.
For me.
Yeah.
Right? So I went over to his house, to his apartment rather, and about 7:30 in the evening one evening, I knocked on.
Some people might say that might be a flawed logic sequence, right? It's the courageous thing. But some people might look at that as a flawed logic choice, right? Is it a good idea to go to a Klan member's house without calling ahead of time? Probably not. Probably not even for me, and I'm mostly white.
On the door, haven't seen him in a few years, right? He opens the door, he's like, Daryl, what are you doing here? And he goes, what's going on, man? Are you still playing? What's going on? I said, yeah, I'm still playing, but listen, I need to talk to you about the Klan. And I said, do you know Roger Kelly? Yeah, I know Roger. Roger's my Grand Dragon. I said, well, listen, I need to talk to Roger Kelly. But because he did not want to introduce me to Roger Kelly. Wow. He was fearful. This guy really liked me, genuinely liked me.
He just said, hey, bro, that's not a good idea. You probably should not bring this idea in. You are intentionally choosing the wrong thing to involve yourself with the Klan. Now, it worked out right. It was a courageous thing. But you might see where the logic and the ideas might have been stuck there a minute. Like you could probably figure that one out, right?
Yeah.
He was fearful for my safety and for his own if he were to take me, this black guy, to this Grand Dragon. So I begged and pleaded with him to give me Mr. Kelly's home address and phone number. After 20 minutes of, figuratively twisting his arm, he finally gave it to me on the condition that I not tell Mr. Kelly where I got it. I said, fine. So he warned me. He said, Daryl, do not fool with Roger Kelly. Roger Kelly will kill you. And like I said, this guy was genuinely concerned. I said, okay. I said, but that's the reason why I need to see Mr. Kelly. Why would he do that? Just because I'm black? I mean, come on, right? So he said,
I'm getting some good logic text, like some poor logic choices. Now, it worked out. I get that. But the logic sequence is not necessarily the best. The idea sequence is not necessarily the best. He's got this one idea that he is extremely defensive about, and he's got to figure out what's going on with it. He is dealing with his morals. He doesn't understand how this can be possible. How can you morally do this? He's trying to correct the ethics of the tribe. Now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. This seems to be a fairly good fit. It seems to work, right? But that is not to say that it is perfect. That is not to say that I am perfect. This is us trying to figure out a little bit more about ourselves. It is to identify within ourselves patterns of thinking, and patterns of delivering information, and patterns of understanding things and making logic choices that maybe we can see something of ourselves in, and we can go back and learn how to strengthen them logic choices up. We can go back and learn how to broaden them ideas so that maybe we don't make them poor logic choices. That is the point of the system. That is why we are here. That is the whole point for this, right? Infinite integrations tells you how to bring this into yourself. It's a little bit too woo-woo for some people. I talk about prayer and fasting and meditation. If so, the MBTI parts will be for you, because that is just dealing with this part, the different definitions and what they mean and the different types and what that means. If you identify with this and you want to learn how to strengthen yourself, you should check out those videos. There will be a link down below for this podcast. I highly recommend that you go back and check it out, that you watch the whole thing in context. I am not lying when I say that I consider Daryl Davis a national hero, right on par with the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart and all of the people who do the valorous acts for our country. I really believe that. What he did was extremely dangerous. It was an extreme act of heroism, even if he doesn't understand that. And he might hear the rest of the story. It's great. The link is down below. I will also link down below the ISFP video so that you can identify, if you identify with this, you can go directly to that and start getting worked on yourself today. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I do things a little bit differently. I am trying to objectify this process a little bit more than it has been, make it a little bit more cut and dry. And it's a process that we are doing together. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.